You know what's so crazy? I'm working on a deck right now for VRTT Vintage, which I'm going to tell you guys about, obviously. But it's the one slide. Like, imagine you have all of these slides talking about your business and where you see it going, and the one slide I couldn't fill in is like about myself. It's crazy how I have literally been working in the fashion industry, in the entertainment industry for over a decade, and the one thing I can't do is talk about myself. But I was born and brought up in New York, and I studied at FIT, fashion merchandising management. Um, it feels like a lifetime ago, but I was always the kind of person that had a life plan. Like, I was going to graduate, get a certain type of job, live in a certain neighborhood in Manhattan, and just live this bubble that I think all of us like set these little mental checklist goals for ourselves. And everything just kind of took a toss when I got scouted in India by an agency, which isn't even around anymore. That's how old I am, called Elite Model Management. And I always enjoyed the idea of modeling, but I always thought if I had to do it, it would be in New York. I just felt way more attached and like aware of like what's going on in the fashion industry in New York. And India was never really on the market for me. I had never like walked in Indian clothes. I never really knew many Indian designers, but once it kind of just took off, I was very lucky to have just risen and been super busy working, and I never saw myself living in India. But right, you can't make up these things. Like, they just kind of happen to you. And I always thought it was very difficult to adjust. And obviously anyone growing up out of India, especially, also just to give you like a bit of background, like India is not what it is today. If you're going, like everything that you guys, every cafe that you walk into and you order your almond milk, or the gyms you go to, like that's not the India that I started working in. Like, it was still a developing, I mean, it's still a developing country, but like it was developing, and it was dying to be something that they could take from the West and make their own, but there was no grasp on it. Like, I was the youngest girl to participate in the first fashion week in Delhi called the Wills Lifestyle India Fashion Week, because it wasn't the norm for a 16-year-old to be able to model, right? Like, Indian parents still said you had to study, you had to graduate, you either had to like get married or find a job, but everything was by the book. So yeah, it was quite an experience, but yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been working in the Indian fashion industry for over 10 years. And throughout that time, it's transitioned from modeling to hosting some of the biggest award shows, um, obviously being affiliated with certain brands that I've endorsed, and then slowly but surely starting my own company with one of my best friends, which is called VRTT Vintage, which sells previously owned luxury goods. And for fun, because I would say that my two passions in life are fission, fashion and fitness. I also teach Pilates on the side, and if you follow it, I think it's so much cooler than my own account on Instagram. It's called And Then We Stretch. So that's where those are like my two things. Initially, I think that India was still playing by the books, right? The same rules I'm talking about that were instilled in our each individual households and in our culture. I think fashion was coming from taking from that and just living within the lines. And there was only a few designers that kind of just strayed and followed their own path. Um, so you see way more. I mean, there was always talent, but you see way more people that are outspoken and confident in the way that they create. And I think, right, like fashion, especially design, it's a form of art. So it should be that self-expression. But when you're thinking about keeping like a cultural something in mind, or a cultural stigma in mind, obviously you're creating in a certain way. I think now people have just gotten more comfortable to be outspoken, and that's made a huge difference. So yeah, initially there was such a difference because in New York, like anything goes, right? That's the beauty of a city like this. It's not like there was no cultural norm. Like, we set the next trend, and we did something completely out of the box and crazy, and like the crazier the better. Whereas in India it was like the opposite. I would say now it's definitely achieved a place of like, no, are we allowed to curse? No fucks
Yeah.
given. Okay. So
Yeah.
VRTT Vintage was founded by Gabriella and I, and the reason we decided to start this company in India and base it out of India is because yes, both of us do live there, and we saw a gap in the market for a secondhand luxury good platform. Because of course, anyone who follows secondhand luxury platforms knows about Versatare, knows about the Real Real, and of course, these are platforms that ship worldwide. But anyone who has lived in India and has to pay the beauty of our customs and import and export tax knows that it doesn't make sense beyond a certain point if you're trying to look for a good deal to shop online. Yes, obviously, when you're left with no choice, that is something that you do. That being said, that wasn't the reason we started this. Our culture is also based so much on like hand-me-downs. I don't know if you have siblings or cousins or anyone, but like things just get passed along. But it's not just with things to sibling. It's like gifts as well. Like how much do we just like pay it forward, gift it forward, you know? Our It's so much built in the fact that like if you don't like something, you just keep it in the packaging and like give it to another relative or whatever, right? Um, and for that, that's like something normal and we like laugh about in our houses or to our people. But like if you had to ask somebody to buy something secondhand for whatever reason, like for us, it was just to be a part of like a more eco-conscious luxury lifestyle. Gabriella and I are both people that have obviously traveled and lived abroad, and we have no problem owning to the fact and speaking about the fact that we buy secondhand goods. In fact, the first Chanel I ever purchased was a secondhand Chanel. And that's not something that I'm parading around saying like this is secondhand. But at the end of the day, like if someone had to ask me, I have no shame in saying that it is. And you know once you learn more about fashion, a brand like Chanel, actually it's sometimes even more expensive to buy secondhand. So there are many aspects to why we started this company. Both of us felt extremely passionate about wanting to cater to people our age, obviously, but I mean, our target audience is anywhere from like a 20 to 60, but it's making people more aware about how you can contribute to a luxury life cycle with without like without being like completely, you don't have to be like an activist is what we're trying to preach. Like
Yeah.
all of us want to go out and shop, but you don't have to buy everything new. And it's a way to educate people on also like brands that aren't in India. Like not every luxury brand has an individual store in India. So this is a platform to like be able to buy vintage, be able to buy things from past seasons, and be able to get your hand on certain brands that maybe you won't be able to. And of course, it is cost effective as well. So yeah, we're super passionate about it, and I think that's why it's in India. Of course, we'd love to expand, and we do have clients all over the world, but the reason why the company is based in India is for that reason. I would say till date, like the most sought after brands that we sell are like Louis Vuitton, Chanel, um, but then you have things like Prada, the nylon bags that were huge maybe 15 years ago. I've made like a huge comeback. And those aren't things that are selling in like Prada stores everywhere in the world. But like, for example, India doesn't have like a Prada store at the moment. Maybe there's one in Delhi, I'm not aware of, but there's definitely not one in Bombay. So um there were certain brands like Louis Vuitton, especially. I think it's because it's like a brand that doesn't go on sale. So to be able to buy something secondhand and like have it discounted, um, yeah. Again, right? Like this isn't something. Firstly, we always tell our customers that like the process is completely anonymous, because I think like a lot of people, still have that stigma around it and maybe have gotten gifted something that they don't want people to know about and people to get upset about. But like the point of the fact is, no matter where it came from, like if there's no use of it and you don't see yourself passing it along to someone or even gifting it to somebody, and if it's just sitting in your closet, then you might as well give it away. But yeah, initially, I think those were the few brands that did really well. And then of course, like the beauty of this is like you have so many different brands, but you also have so many different styles. So, you know, people might just like associate Celine with the luggage tote, or like Gucci with the Gucci belts. But we had like such rare pieces come in, and these are pieces that are like anywhere from 10 to 20 years old. So it was a great way for other people to understand like you can bring vintage stuff back and you can thrift and mix and match new with old. Like I had that like Prada backpack and like all these bags that I used to have when I was like 15, I remember. And they've just made like a huge comeback. And like now if you go and search for a Prada backpack, it's like impossible to find. So it's funny how but that is like the luxury. That's like the fashion life cycle. They always say things come back. I mean, I learned it in school, but like I saw it in front of my eyes. And but you know, you take that call. Like you're the one who makes that decision. If you obviously, if you have kids, if you have sisters, if you have family, like I have so many nieces that I know can like wear so many of my old clothes. And they're not like old as in dirty rags, like they're just things that I've outgrown, but can still be super cool, right? Like example, like this hoodie, although it doesn't look like much, but it was from like a collaboration with Puma like years ago, and it's like something I still cherish. But who knows, right? Like these are things that are like limited edition that you can never get your hands on again. I think if you read any report for the future of fashion, anyone will say that like the consumer is the one who's now educating themselves as to like where was something made, and how was it made, and how conscious is the company. So we can only stand for what we sell and what we curate and what we put on our platform, and we're really particular about the stuff that we take because we're not trying to add to more waste. We don't take everything and anything. It's not like you can literally give us like a bag full of garbage and say something to do with it. But we are hoping this year to expand and work with a few of these houses to upcycle um, some of the stuff that's in waste. But that is that was put on hold because of the pandemic. But we're hoping this year to get around to that because we just launched men's. We're in the process of opening up like a side children's section
Mhm.
as well because you know people especially with kids, right, they're constantly outgrowing what they wear, and that's still that's like it's a huge deal because a lot of moms don't know what to do with that clothing. But yeah, slowly but surely it's just about educating our clientele. It's sharing the knowledge that we're learning side by side. It's a passion project, but it's also something that we feel very strongly about, and we're very open with the idea of trying to help in some way. There's like a thrift shop that I like out of India called Lovebirds. I think that's their name. I might be wrong. I might be like I might be missing a word, but I think it's called Lovebirds. And again, like so they sell secondhand clothing. So I think to each their own in that way. I would say that things are moving in that direction. I wouldn't say I would say there's still a smaller market for like a conscious consumer because when I see in the States how like when I shop or I walk into a store, anything from packaging to something that's written on a pamphlet, and like it's about the whole experience, right? So I still think there's a lot to be done for that shift to be made in India, but it's definitely happening. And I what I love and what I've seen during the pandemic, and I think that this just goes to show that it's a huge step forward, sorry, during the lockdown, that more people are supporting local brands, and that is the first step, right? So we are getting there. It's just going to take time, and I think it's normal, right? We lived through a time where everything was lavish and everything was luxury, and I don't think anyone really saw something like this coming. And then you were forced to like reassess every little hole in your life. So it's also just given people time to move in that direction because it takes time. Like we started out as a sustainable company, but not everyone did, and it's okay to like own up to that and then do something about it. I'm just going to go back to like what I said in the beginning, like in terms of the fashion industry in India, generally it took time to think that out of box approach and be vocal about what you feel. But now the amount of talented people I meet, in any category of the fashion industry, like they're ready to make the change, and they're educating themselves, and they're traveling, and they're collaborating with the right people. So yeah, it's definitely headed in the right direction. It's on the rise for sure. Being healthy and being active has always just been part of my life because I grew up in the suburbs. So after school every day, like whether if I wasn't playing a sport or staying after school to be a part of some club or be on a team, I was outside until the sun set. And I think, it has a lot to do with the way I formed my own routine. So because I started working, well, I've always been hands-on, right? Like for me, school was secondary. Like I couldn't just sit in a classroom and soak in the knowledge. Like I had to experience it. Like I got a retail job when I was 15 years old, and I wanted to work on the floor to understand what it would be like to grow a brand, or run a store, or just do something in merchandising. And I feel the same way about like health and wellness, where you play with certain things that are you're interested in. So like I always loved sports growing up. I was on the basketball team, I played tennis, karate, swimming, track, uh piano, tap, ballet, jazz. So like anything
Wow.
from it, yeah. And I don't understand how I had time when I had no time to study. But that was truly what I lived for, to just like have any excuse to be outside. And it was beautiful. It's for me, like nature is everything. But obviously when I started working, like there was only so much that I can do to like stay on track and make time for all of these things that I once loved as a kid. I also became like less competitive in life in general. So I never wanted to do it like for the competition, but like movement is something that just makes me feel good. And I know now a lot more than before, a lot of people are talking about meditating and these apps that they're using to just do breath work and stuff. And that's great that that works for them, but it's just never worked for me. Although I do have moments where, and I do have days where like I can meditate for an hour, and then I have days where it's just like 5 minutes. But the one thing that connects me to myself is movement. And one summer when I was home, I ended up just getting a Pilates certification because I started yoga when I was 15, and there was always like something missing from my practice. And my teacher had told me to try Pilates. And I got so hooked to Pilates because Pilates actually was something that was used as like a rehabilitation for a lot of injuries. But what was beautiful is like I didn't have an injury. I was fairly young when I started, but like I knew something was lacking in the way it was like stopping me from getting deeper into my practice. And Pilates helped me get that core strength. And I was just like stunned at how well I was in touch with my body. And everyone's going to have that moment. I'm not saying Pilates is for everybody, but for me, it just really changed my life, which is why I got certified in it. And I always had like a passion for dance as well, especially ballet. So I mixed the two, and I started just making my own workouts and choreographing it. And during the lockdown, I always wanted to teach. So I always made time to teach when I was in New York because I wasn't working full time when I was home. So, I had more time to teach. But when I was in India, it was very hard to commit to be a full-time teacher because, work pulls you in multiple directions and you're traveling, and I couldn't commit to like having certain clients month to month. But during the lockdown, this is why I call it like my pandemic project, is like it gave me the time to record myself and share these at home workouts because everyone's just sitting at home and trying to find new ways to move and get out of this feeling of feeling stuck. And people just like responded really well to it, and they kept asking for it. And then We Stretch came from just something I used to repeat in class when I used to do classes in New York. I said it so much that it became so funny because I think anyone who teaches can relate that like there's always one thing you say and you're like in your mind you've heard it so much and you're kind of like shut up, like you're having that conversation with yourself. So for me, like that was it. And then We Stretch. So I made this Instagram page, and I also just didn't want people to take working out so seriously. Like the thing is, people work out with the idea that like it's not like it shouldn't come from like a vain reason. Like you should have something that connects you to it, which is why I'm saying Pilates isn't for everyone. My classes are not for everybody. They could be really bored, or maybe they can just like not relate to the type of workout. Like some people want to be super regimented about it, but I like to enjoy myself because it shouldn't feel like hard work. Like it should be the one thing that you're doing for yourself and taking that time out of the day. So that's the whole idea with And Then We Stretch. And the social media page is just like my mini inspo board. It's not just about health and wellness. It's just about knowing that like it's purely life. Like you're never gonna have the best 6 days in a row. Like I love sugar. I'm gonna eat sugar. Like I'm gonna eat chocolate. So it's just about a balance between what's healthy and what's not. And that's just what I believe in. I'm a morning person. I like my mornings. I feel like even if I have to wake up an extra hour earlier before anything starts, like even though I'm a morning person, I move slowly in the morning. So like I need my time for my coffee. I need like time to work out. I need time to just do a mental check. So I would say I like to start my weekdays like that. And as Thursday hits, I become a little more relaxed. And in terms of diet, I'm mostly vegetarian, but I eat seafood occasionally, not so much in India. I don't find that the seafood is completely fresh. So, but yeah, I would say it's mostly vegetarian, but that's not out of religious reasons. I actually stopped eating meat when I was like 12 years old. So it's been like over 15 years now. I just don't crave it. So it wasn't like because it's trending or anything. You know, I feel I just like to pay attention to what I like and what I don't like. So one thing for me where I'm like constantly trick myself into being deprived of is anything, any form of dessert. So I think that's like my one weakness. But I like to stick to a routine. Like I am very routine based. I like to have certain plans and certain deadlines on a daily basis. And I am strict about it until the weekend. And then I just kind of like go with the flow. I used to be worse, but it's hard to stick to routine, especially when you're traveling and stuff. It's not nice. So
Yeah.
you have to, yeah, you have to have the balance. I'm like, okay, if I can do like 4 days of being strict, then I can relax. And I am strict about it until the weekend. And then I just kind of like go with the flow. I used to be worse, but it's hard to stick to routine, especially when you're traveling and stuff. It's not nice. So
Yeah.
you have to, yeah, you have to have the balance. I'm like, okay, if I can do like 4 days of being strict, then I can relax. I'm still VRTT is a fairly new business. So you, it sucks because when you're trying to grow something and you feel like you're just starting out and you have all these ideas and we had deadlines. I'm so sorry. One second, one second.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry. I think I just hung up on my dad's client.
Oh,
Um, that might happen again.
that's it. If you need to
Um,
take the call, feel free.
No, it's fine. It's not for me and he's not here, so I'm not gonna be the secretary right now. I would say that obviously the thing is, right, like I just spoke about routine and having certain plans. And from a business point of view, it just sucks because we could have had like such a great year. And I'm not saying it wasn't, but like everyone, right? You just feel stuck. You're sitting at home, like if the office is shut and you're not going to work and you're not meeting people, and my partner has a baby, so like for her she also has to keep in mind that like that has to be a priority. And the other work I do in terms of hosting and stuff, like obviously that came to a standstill. But without getting into like how anyone can complain about how it kind of sucked at first for work, and just stopping the life, I think that what I'm really grateful for to turn this around is, although it started out really shitty, I would say that even in the darkest times, like now that I can look back, it just forced me to go inwards and realize that for the first time ever, like no one could escape from their problems and no one could escape from the habits that creep up on us that we kind of just like push away. No one could escape from maybe underlying tension in the person that you were in lockdown with. And I think everything just needed to come out and it did. And although I know people are going through some of the worst times in their life, and maybe they feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not going to sit here and like give you a positive quote about there is, but I could just say, personally speaking, when I mean, I was alone during lockdown for all of it. So, like I felt super isolated. And for someone who's super used to traveling and being social and not being able to get to my family, and my mom had just visited me in Bombay for like a month and a half, and she left like the week before the country went into lockdown. So I felt so like torn from like not being able to be with my family, but also like sitting in this space, not wanting to be alone. And it can put anyone in like a mental funk. I would say that I'm super grateful to the friends that I had that were like always checking in and always being there. But what it really made me feel was that for once, I felt what it was like to create a home and inside myself more than just like my space. We were going, although I would say that the year before lockdown, oh my God, 2019 feels like eons away. But even just like years leading up to it, like everything was so fast paced, everything was so touch and go. And I'm not saying this was a blessing, because it's not at all. It's not. I don't understand what the hell is happening in the world, but I would say whatever it was for me, the only thing I can do now going forward is count my blessings and just slow down a little bit. If I want to do anything, I just want to slow down. I felt like I was in a rush for everything I was doing. And every moment of like either pain or pure joy, all I did was feel it. And I had to like sit with that feeling. And I think that's what helped the most. If you've survived it, then like I think all you can do is carry forward right now. I mean, I mean, I kept telling there's like obviously so many days, right, where we're probably all like, what are we doing? I mean, I started off by saying this initially, where you like, I would wake up and like literally question your existence because there was so much happening in the world. There's too many emotions to deal with. And I think the only thing you can do is just try to find that tune back into yourself and what works for you. I'd love to first, just being at home, see my family more. I'd love to be able to travel a little more freely and not be stuck in one place. I'd love to see, I mean, we do have plans for VRTT expansion this year. I will not be saying those ideas right now because stay tuned, but I'm very excited. So hoping that those goals can be achieved within the next few months, the first half of this year. And yeah, that's really it. I think if anything, last year's taught me to not plan so much. So my expectations are really small, but I think just focusing on work, focusing on just family time, and just staying in touch with the people that like mean something. That's it.
Awesome.
And then of course within then we stretch, but that's like a lifelong thing.
Yep.
That's just my lifelong practice. So hopefully just getting out more classes, working with more teachers that I like, and yeah, just sharing that piece of myself with you guys. People use the social media as a platform for many different reasons. Like some just want to share. I just want to share. I don't want to be politically, I just want to be neutral. I don't want to be incorrect or correct. And but that being said, like it is a great place to educate, to inform. I think again, like I don't want to be a preacher on this. I think if you need to make a change or if you want to see a change, you have to follow the certain accounts that inspire you, and not feed into maybe people that are constantly using the platform to spew negativity, their opinions. There was a lot of social media bullying during COVID. It obviously brought out a lot of just sentiments and values and the way people think, right? Like you really got to know somebody through their social media, and that's completely up to you, right? Like I always try and take a step back and ask myself like why I'm even on Instagram and why I post what I do. And I try not to take it so seriously, because at the end of the day, like it's great, but like we can't get caught up in this affecting your whole day. It is a nice part of my day. I'm not going to say I don't wake up and I check Instagram. At some point I do. I try and wait, but like I will check Instagram. But I think the only way to just just decide for yourself what accounts you want to follow and what kind of stuff you want to post. Because if you do want to be outspoken, then you have to be okay with the fact that someone will disagree. I, for one, do not like to feed into the negativity. So I do get comments about people body shaming or people telling me off about something, or, just being derogatory towards women in general. And it's like, I could have a conversation with you about, yeah, but it's just like silly comments. But the point is, like, I don't want to get into it. Like, you are a waste of my energy. So I would rather you just unfollow me. So sometimes I literally go to the person's profile and unfollow them for me. So it's like, why do you follow me just because you want to say something negative? Just stop.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way. And everyone has to find that line that works for them on their own. There's no right way to be on social media. I would say that I think it's very important to spend at least like an hour a day outside minimum. So I would definitely tell people that if you are especially sitting at a desk or at home all day, to like find that time for yourself. It could be for exercise depending on where you live, or it could just be for a walk, or it could literally just be finding a place to sit, running out to get a coffee or tea or groceries or something. But like find that time to like a way to get outside somewhere. And with sleep, yeah, I feel everyone on the sleep thing. I was sleeping so late, so late at one point, and waking up super late. But I think now people are going back to a little more of like a normal working day routine. Um, I would say that no matter what time you're sleeping and waking up, because it really depends on what works for you. So I'm not going to say everyone's a morning person. Just try and get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It is important. I don't know why people think 5 hours of sleep is okay. Like, I guess it is. You can have an argument or a discussion with me about it, but I would say that a good amount of sleeping time is 7 to 8 hours, and make a list in terms of nutrition. Firstly, get some blood work done, find out your deficiencies, make sure you're taking the right vitamins, and then from like just a well-balanced eating perspective, I would say make a list of all of your favorite foods that are junk food or unhealthy, and make sure that like you can either control yourself if they're in the house, or just make them like treats on the weekend, or even if it's like a midweek splurge. Because the thing is, because we're sitting at home, like there's no real lunchtime or dinner time. I mean, there is for certain people, but I would say that like the snacking has just increased a lot. So I would say going forward, just you have to kind of put yourself on that schedule. Like, are you eating out of boredom? Are you eating because you're hungry? And move around. Like, even if you're sitting, they're really stupid things that I'm saying, but they're just you just need to keep moving, hydrating, and eating healthy. So like right now it's 5 p.m. for me. Like what I really want to do is like eat a piece of chocolate before dinner, but what I actually am going to do is maybe just have like a glass of water and like some fruit. So it's about just knowing that you can have this conversation in your head, and I'm like, okay, Diva, it's Tuesday. Like I really, really, really want that piece of chocolate, but if I don't eat it today, by like Thursday, I can treat myself. And then there's certain people that just want to eat chocolate every day, but then don't eat milk chocolate, eat dark chocolate. So have these little mini conversations with yourself, because if you need to just find your level of discipline. And trust me, I'm not that disciplined, but I love my wine. I love having a little midnight snack if I'm like watching TV late, but I'd rather know that I'm going to wait till that, and not, you can't split, like every day's not your birthday is what I'm trying to say. So I think the only thing I would tell people is that during this time, obviously it's brought about a lot of like unrest, mental unrest, and just to constantly keep in mind that like a little bit of patience with people that might not have been there for you, and that you expected to be there for you, or just haven't maybe had an easy time with or had a fallout with. Like if you really, really love somebody and you want them in your life, it's been harder to stay in touch with people. It's been harder to communicate, although we've probably had more than enough time to communicate. And the people who are really struggling, like my one reminder to people who know people suffering from a mental illness, and especially A, there's so many different layers to a mental illness, and B, understand that it's not an illness that you can physically see all the time. So to keep that in mind when approaching a situation or being in a room with somebody, or reaching out to somebody, that you might have to do a little more and you might have to give a little more, but it might make the world of a difference and you might just save a life. So that's it.